There's something powerful about knowing that God has something big in store for your life. Sometimes before that blessing comes, you'll notice things shifting, challenges arise, people leave, doors close. But that's not a sign to be discouraged. That's a sign that something greater is on the way. Maybe you've been facing more opposition than usual. You take one step forward and it feels like something is pushing you 2 steps back. Don't let that fool you. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you this hard if there wasn't something valuable ahead. That pressure is proof that you're close to a breakthrough. Or maybe certain doors have shut. That job you thought was yours, it didn't work out. That relationship you thought would last forever, it ended. But what if I told you that the closed door is not a loss, it's a setup for something better? God knows what He's doing. If He allowed something to close, it's because He has something greater in store. Sometimes when God is about to bless you, He starts removing people from your life. Not everyone is meant to go where you're going. He's making space for the right people, the right opportunities. Don't chase after those who walked away. Trust that God is bringing new divine connections into your life. You may even feel restless, like where you are no longer fits who you're becoming. That's because God is stretching you for what's next. When a baby outgrows the womb, it has to be delivered. The discomfort you feel is God preparing you for a new level. Then all of a sudden, the right opportunity starts showing up. A door opens that you weren't even expecting. The right people cross your path. That's not luck. That's the favor of God. And in the middle of it all, you feel this strong pull to trust God like never before, to pray more, to lean in. That's because He's guiding you toward what He has prepared. So don't be discouraged by what's happening around you. These signs are not obstacles. They are indicators that God is up to something big. You are on the verge of a breakthrough. Stay in faith. Keep pressing forward and get ready, because what's coming is greater than anything you've imagined. When you're on the verge of something big, something life-changing, you'll often notice an increase in resistance. It's as if the moment you decide to step into what God has for you, everything around you starts pushing back. Obstacles appear out of nowhere. Challenges seem to multiply, and it can feel like life is testing you at every turn. But let me tell you, this isn't happening because you're on the wrong path. It's happening because you're on the right one. Think about it. If there were nothing valuable ahead, why would the enemy bother to fight you? Why would life suddenly seem harder just when you're about to step into something greater? That pressure you feel, those difficulties that have come out of nowhere, are not a sign of defeat. They are a sign that you are on the edge of a breakthrough. Look at the lives of great people in the Bible. Joseph had a dream of greatness, of leadership, of influence, but before he ever stepped into that promise, he was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and wrongfully imprisoned. It seemed like everything was working against him. If he had judged his future based on his present struggles, he would have given up. He could have said, maybe I heard God wrong. Maybe I'm not supposed to be great. Maybe this dream wasn't for me. But what he didn't know was that all of those setbacks were actually setting him up for what God had in store. The very prison that seemed like the end of his story was the place where he was positioned for his greatest opportunity. In one day, he went from being a prisoner to being second in command over all of Egypt. What looked like a season of opposition was actually preparation for promotion. Maybe in your own life, you've been facing one challenge after another. You take a step forward and something comes to push you back. You finally get a break and then another obstacle appears. It can be exhausting. It can make you question everything. But what if I told you that the resistance you're facing is not a sign that you're failing? It's a sign that you're getting closer. When a mother is in labor, the pain intensifies. Right before the baby is born, the discomfort becomes almost unbearable. But that's not the time to give up. That's the time to push. Because the pain is proof that something new is about to be birthed. In the same way, the struggle in your life right now is not a sign that you should quit. It's not a sign that you've lost your way. It's a sign that something new, something great is about to be birthed in your life. You may be facing financial difficulties, wondering why things seem to be getting worse instead of better. You're trying to be faithful, you're working hard, you're believing for more, but the struggle is real. Instead of seeing doors open, you're seeing bills pile up. Instead of opportunities coming, you're facing setbacks. But could it be that this opposition is actually proof that God is setting you up for a greater blessing? You may be facing challenges in your relationships. People you thought would always be there have suddenly walked away. Friendships that used to be strong have faded. It hurts. It doesn't make sense. But maybe God is allowing certain people to exit your life because they can't go where He's taking you. The shaking, the shifting, the breaking, it's not meant to harm you. It's meant to position you for something better. And let's talk about your dreams. Maybe you've stepped out in faith to start something new, a business, a ministry, a career change. You were full of excitement, believing that this was what God wanted you to do. But instead of immediate success, you faced struggle after struggle. You've questioned whether you heard God correctly. You've wondered if you made a mistake. But let me remind you, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not God. Just because you're facing resistance doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. In fact, it may be the clearest sign that you're exactly where you need to be, because the enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. He doesn't waste energy attacking something that has no potential. If you weren't carrying something valuable, he wouldn't be trying to stop you. If your destiny wasn't significant, he wouldn't be working so hard to discourage you. The fact that you're facing this battle means that what's ahead is worth fighting for. And here's the truth. The opposition is not stronger than you. The obstacles are not greater than God's plan. The struggle may feel intense, but it will not last forever. God is still in control. He is still working, and He is using everything you're going through to prepare you for what's next. So don't give up now. Don't let the resistance make you question your calling. Don't let the struggle convince you to quit. You are closer than you think. What's coming is bigger than what you've lost. What's ahead is greater than what's behind. Keep pushing, keep believing, keep trusting, because the very thing that looks like a setback is about to launch you into your breakthrough. There are moments in life when things don't go as planned. You've worked hard, done the right things, and prayed faithfully, yet suddenly a door that seemed like the perfect opportunity closes in front of you. You were sure that job was meant for you. You thought that relationship would last. You were excited about an opportunity, only to find out it wasn't going to happen. It can be frustrating, confusing, and even discouraging when something you believed in slips through your fingers. But what if I told you that when something doesn't work out, it's not because you missed your chance. It's because something greater is coming. What if that closed door wasn't rejection, but God's protection? What if that setback was actually a setup for something far beyond what you imagined? Too often when we face disappointment, we assume that something has gone wrong. We question ourselves. We wonder if we made a mistake, if we should have worked harder, if we should have prayed more. But sometimes, no matter how hard you try, certain doors will not open because they aren't meant to. Not because you're not good enough, not because you're not capable, but because what's on the other side is too small for what God has in store. Think about a child who desperately wants a certain toy. From their limited perspective, that toy seems like the best thing in the world. They beg their parents for it, convinced that nothing could make them happier. But what they don't know is that their parents have something far greater planned, a trip, an experience, a gift that will bring them joy beyond what they could comprehend. If the parents were to give in and say yes to the small thing, the child might miss out on something much bigger. God operates in the same way. There are times when you are praying and believing for something and it seems perfect to you. It fits your timeline. It aligns with your plans. You're excited about it. But then suddenly The door shuts, the opportunity disappears, the relationship falls apart, and in that moment it's easy to feel like you've lost something. But what you don't see is that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating something much greater than what you could have planned for yourself. If that door had opened, you would have settled for less than what God has prepared. If that opportunity had worked out, it might have kept you from stepping into something far beyond what you had in mind. That closed door is not the end of the story. It's a sign that there is something better ahead. Think about the story of Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt. They were on their way to the promised land, and everything seemed to be going according to plan until they reached the Red Sea. Suddenly, their path was blocked. The Egyptian army was closing in behind them, and there was nowhere to go. From their perspective, it looked like a disaster. It looked like they had been led into a trap. But what they didn't know was that God was about to make a way where there was no way. He wasn't just going to give them a small escape route. He was going to do something miraculous. He was going to part the sea, allowing them to walk through on dry ground. If the road ahead had been clear, they might have thought they could do it on their own. But because the way seemed blocked, they had no choice but to rely on God. And in doing so, they witnessed one of the greatest miracles in history. That's what happens when God closes a door. It may look like an obstacle, but in reality, it's an opportunity for Him to do something extraordinary in your life. Maybe you've been trying to force a door open. You've done everything you can, but no matter how hard you push, it won't budge. You feel like you're stuck. But instead of being frustrated, what if you shifted your perspective? What if, instead of seeing it as a rejection, you saw it as redirection? Imagine you're traveling down a road, following a map to your destination, but suddenly you come across a road closed sign. At first, you're frustrated. This wasn't part of the plan. You don't understand why you can't keep going the way you intended, but then you check your GPS and it reroutes you to a path that is faster, safer, and better than the one you were originally on. That's how God works. He sees the road ahead. He knows where the detours are, where the danger lies, where the delays will happen. And sometimes He closes a door, not to punish you, but to protect you, to guide you to something greater, to lead you to a destination you never would have reached if you had insisted on going your own way. It's easy to trust God when things are going smoothly, when every door is opening, when opportunities are lining up, when everything is falling into place. But real trust is developed in the moments when things don't go according to plan, when doors shut, when paths are blocked, when you have to believe that even when you can't see it, God is still working for your good. And here's the incredible thing. When you look back on your life, you'll start to see how every closed door led you to something better. You'll realize that the things you once cried over, the things you thought were the end, were actually making room for blessings far greater than what you originally prayed for. So if you're in a season where doors are closing, where opportunities seem to be slipping away, don't lose heart. Don't get discouraged. Instead, get excited. Because if something didn't work out, that means something better is coming. If a door shut, that means God is about to open one that is bigger, greater, and more aligned with your destiny. Your story is still unfolding. The best is yet to come. Keep trusting, keep believing, keep moving forward. Because when one door closes, it's not the end. It's a sign that a greater door is about to open. There are seasons in life when the people you once trusted, the ones you thought would always be by your side, suddenly start to distance themselves. The friendships that used to be strong begin to fade. The people you relied on for support seem uninterested or unavailable. It can be confusing, even painful. You wonder what happened, what changed, or if you did something wrong. But what if I told you that this isn't something to be sad about? What if this shift is not a loss, but a sign that something greater is ahead? Sometimes when God is getting ready to take you to a new level, He starts to remove certain people from your life, not to hurt you, but to make space for something better. It's not always easy to accept, especially when you care about those people. You thought they were part of your journey forever, but now they're pulling away. You used to talk all the time, but now the connection feels different. You're trying to hold on, but no matter what you do, they seem to be slipping away. Instead of fighting it, instead of trying to force them to stay, what if you trusted that God knows what He's doing? Not everyone is meant to go where He's taking you. Some people were only part of your journey for a season. They were there to teach you something, to help you grow, to support you during a particular time in your life. But just because they were right for then doesn't mean they're right for now. Think about a rocket. When it's taking off, there are booster engines attached to help it gain momentum. Those boosters are necessary for a time. They help push the rocket higher. They provide support. They make sure the rocket can break through the atmosphere. But at a certain point, those boosters have to detach. If they don't, they'll become dead weight. If the rocket tried to hold on to them, it wouldn't be able to reach its full potential. The boosters were needed for a time, but they were never meant to stay attached forever. That's how life works. There are people who are like boosters. They help you in one stage of your journey, but they're not meant to go with you all the way. Holding on to them too long can actually slow you down. It can keep you from reaching the place God has for you. This doesn't mean those people are bad. It doesn't mean they don't care about you. It just means that their part in your story has ended, and that's okay. If God allowed them to leave, then trust that He knows what He's doing. Look at the life of Jesus. Even He experienced this. When He was performing miracles, when He was healing the sick, when He was feeding thousands of people, crowds followed Him everywhere. People surrounded Him. They wanted to be near Him. But when it came time for Him to fulfill His greatest purpose, when He was arrested and taken to the cross, most of those people disappeared. Even some of His closest disciples distanced themselves. At first glance, that seems heartbreaking, but in reality, it was necessary. Not everyone was meant to be part of the final stage of His journey. Some people only loved Him when things were easy. Some only followed Him for what He could do for them. When the true test came, they couldn't handle it. But their departure didn't stop His destiny. In fact, it confirmed it. The same is true for you. When certain people walk away, it's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you're stepping into something greater. If they were meant to be there, they would be. If they could handle where God is taking you, they would stay. But sometimes their departure is the very thing that makes room for the right people to enter. Maybe you've been feeling alone. Maybe you've been wondering why certain friendships don't feel the same anymore. Maybe you've been struggling to understand why people who once cheered for you now seem distant. Instead of seeing it as a loss, see it as preparation. Because when God is about to elevate you, He removes distractions. He clears away anything that could hold you back. He allows some relationships to end so that new ones can begin. Imagine if you had a full glass of water, but you wanted to fill it with something new, something richer, something better. You couldn't pour the new drink in unless you first emptied the glass. In the same way, God sometimes allows people to leave so that He can bring new people who are more aligned with your future. And here's the truth: the right people will find you. The ones who are meant to walk with you will be there. You won't have to beg for their support. You won't have to convince them to stay. They will recognize your value. They will believe in your vision, and they will celebrate your success, not secretly compete with it. So don't chase after those who have walked away. Don't waste time trying to hold on to what God is trying to release. Trust that if they left, it's because they weren't meant to be part of the next chapter. Instead, focus on where you're going. Keep moving forward. Keep trusting that what's ahead is better than what's behind. Because when God starts removing people, it's not rejection, it's alignment, it's preparation, it's making space for something greater. And if you stay in faith, if you don't get stuck in disappointment, you will soon see why certain people had to leave. You'll realize that their absence was not a loss. it was a blessing in disguise. And one day you'll look back and say, I see it now. I understand. God was making room for something greater all along. There are moments in life when you feel a deep sense of restlessness, a stirring in your spirit that you can't quite explain. You may find yourself feeling unsettled in places where you once felt comfortable. The job that used to excite you now feels routine and unfulfilling. The environment that once felt right suddenly feels too small. You sense a shift happening, and even though you can't see what's next, you know deep down that something is changing. This is not something to ignore. It's not just a phase. That feeling of restlessness is often a sign that God is preparing you for something greater. It's His way of nudging you forward, letting you know that you've outgrown where you are and that it's time to move to a new level. Too often we resist this feeling. We try to push it away, convincing ourselves that everything is fine, that we should just be grateful for what we have. And while gratitude is important, it's also important to recognize when God is calling you higher. Look at how an eagle raises its young. When an eagle builds a nest for its baby birds, it makes sure it's warm, soft, and comfortable. The little ones are safe, protected, and well fed. But at a certain point, the mother eagle starts to remove the soft layers from the nest, exposing the sharp twigs underneath. What was once a place of comfort suddenly becomes uncomfortable. The little birds don't understand what's happening. They just know that the nest doesn't feel as good as it used to. Why does the mother eagle do this? Because if she leaves the nest too comfortable, the baby birds will never want to leave. They'll never learn to fly. So by making the nest uncomfortable, she is pushing them toward their destiny. She is helping them step into what they were created to do. In the same way, God will sometimes allow discomfort in your life, not to harm you, but to push you toward your destiny. That restlessness, that sense that something isn't quite right anymore. Think about Moses. He grew up in Pharaoh's palace, living a life of privilege. He had access to wealth, power, and comfort. By all accounts, he had everything anyone could want. But deep inside, he felt unsettled. Something didn't sit right in his spirit. He couldn't just ignore the suffering of his people. He couldn't be at peace while injustice was happening around him. That discomfort, that stirring inside of him was God calling him to something greater. And when he finally embraced it, he stepped into his true purpose, leading the Israelites to freedom. Maybe you're in a similar place. You're in a job that pays well, but you feel like there's something more for you. You're surrounded by people who care about you, but something inside is telling you that your journey is shifting. You can't quite explain it, but you know that you're not supposed to stay where you are. Instead of ignoring that feeling, lean into it. Ask yourself, what is God trying to show me? What is He preparing me for? Because when He starts to stir something in your heart, it's not random, it's intentional. He's making you uncomfortable in one place so that you will step into something greater. It's easy to stay where it's safe. It's easy to keep doing what you've always done. But just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's where you're supposed to stay. Growth requires movement. Destiny requires change. Look at a caterpillar. It spends its early days crawling on the ground, living a certain way. But there comes a point when something inside shifts. It no longer feels right to stay the same. It goes into a cocoon, not knowing exactly what's happening, but trusting the process. And in time, it emerges as something completely different, something that can fly. If that caterpillar resisted the transformation, if it fought to stay the same, it would never become what it was created to be. It would miss out on the ability to soar. In the same way, you have to be willing to embrace the changes that are happening in your life. You have to trust that the discomfort is not there to harm you, it's there to prepare you. Maybe God is calling you to start something new, a business, a ministry, a creative project, but you're hesitant because stepping into the unknown feels risky. Or maybe you feel like certain relationships are shifting and you don't understand why. The people you used to connect with don't seem to align with where you're going. That can be difficult, but it's also a sign that God is aligning you with new connections, new opportunities, and new assignments. When you feel restlessness, Don't let fear keep you stuck. Don't hold on to something that is no longer meant for you. Instead, ask God for clarity. Ask Him to show you what He's preparing you for. Because when God starts stirring something in your heart, it's not to frustrate you. It's to position you for something greater. It's His way of letting you know that a shift is happening, that a new door is about to open. And when that door opens, you'll look back and realize that every moment of discomfort was worth it. Every season of uncertainty was leading you to something far beyond what you could have imagined. So don't resist the stirring. Don't ignore the signs. Lean into the shift. Because when God starts preparing you for something big, He doesn't just change your surroundings, He changes you. And if you trust Him through the process, you will step into something greater than you ever dreamed. There are moments in life when everything seems to slow down. The doors that used to open so easily now feel locked. The opportunities that once flowed effortlessly now seem distant. You've been praying, believing, and working hard, yet nothing seems to be moving forward. It feels like you're stuck, trapped in a waiting season that doesn't make sense. It's frustrating when you know you have potential, when you know you're capable of more, yet no matter what you do, things don't seem to be progressing. You might feel like you're ready for the next level, but nothing is happening. You look around and see others moving ahead, stepping into new opportunities while you remain in the same place. It's easy to wonder, did I miss something? Did I do something wrong? But what if I told you that this delay is not a denial? What if this waiting period is not a sign that nothing is happening, but rather a sign that something is being prepared? Think about a farmer planting seeds. He places them in the soil, waters them, and does everything he's supposed to do. But for a while, it looks like nothing is happening. The ground looks the same. There's no visible progress. He could easily become discouraged and think, maybe this isn't working, maybe nothing is growing. But just because he can't see growth doesn't mean it's not happening. Beneath the surface, the seed is taking root. It's developing a foundation. If it sprouted too soon, it wouldn't be strong enough to withstand storms or bear fruit. It needs time to grow deep before it can grow high. In the same way, when you're in a season of waiting, it doesn't mean God has forgotten about you. It doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means that something is being prepared. You are being rooted. Your foundation is being strengthened. Because what God is about to do in your life isn't small, it's big. And for something big to last, it needs a solid foundation. Look at David in the Bible. As a young shepherd, he was anointed to be king. He had a calling, a promise, a destiny. Yet after being anointed, he didn't step into the throne immediately. Instead, he went back to the fields. He continued tending sheep. From the outside, it looked like nothing changed. He knew he was meant for more, but he had to wait. That season of waiting wasn't wasted. It was preparation. While David was alone in the fields, he was developing the skills, character, and strength he would need for his future. He was learning to fight lions and bears, which later prepared him to defeat Goliath. He was learning to lead in private before he could lead in public. If David had rushed the process, if he had tried to take the throne before he was ready, he wouldn't have been able to handle it. But because he trusted God's timing, he stepped into his destiny at the right moment. Maybe you're in that same place right now. You feel the calling. You sense that something great is ahead, but nothing seems to be happening. Instead of getting discouraged, see it as preparation. This waiting season is strengthening you. It's equipping you with wisdom, patience, and resilience. It's shaping you into the person who will be ready to handle the blessing when it comes. If you step into something too soon, before you're ready, it can end up feeling more like a burden than a blessing. If you get a promotion before you have the leadership skills to handle it, you'll feel overwhelmed. If you enter a relationship before you fully heal, you'll carry past wounds into your future. If you receive a platform before you've built character, you won't have the foundation to sustain it. That's why God allows waiting seasons, not to frustrate you, but to prepare you. He is not just interested in getting you there. He is interested in making sure you can stay there. He doesn't want you to just receive the blessing. He wants you to be strong enough to carry it. Look at Joseph. He had dreams of leadership, dreams of greatness. But before he stepped into his destiny, he went through years of waiting. He was betrayed, falsely accused, and placed in prison. From the outside, it looked like nothing was happening, but in reality, everything was happening. God was preparing him, refining his character, teaching him wisdom, and positioning him for the right moment. When the time was right, everything shifted suddenly. Joseph went from the prison to the palace in a single day. All the years of waiting led to a moment where everything changed. That's how God works. You may feel like nothing is happening, but when the time is right, things will shift in an instant. The doors that seem closed will suddenly open. The opportunities that felt distant will appear right in front of you. The connections, the resources, the breakthrough, it will all align at the perfect time. So what should you do while you wait? Keep preparing, keep growing, keep trusting. Instead of focusing on why things are taking so long, focus on what you can do in the meantime. If David had stopped practicing his skills, he wouldn't have been ready for Goliath. If Joseph had given up in prison, he wouldn't have been positioned for the palace. The delay is not a sign of denial, it's a sign of development. God is working behind the scenes in ways you can't see. He is aligning the right people, the right opportunities, and the right timing. And when the moment comes, it will all make sense. You'll realize that every season of waiting was necessary. Every moment of delay was part of the plan. Because when something is being built to last, it takes time. So don't lose heart. Don't get weary. Your waiting season is not wasted. It's positioning you for something greater. And when the door finally opens, you'll step into something far beyond what you ever imagined. There comes a point in life when things begin to shift, and you start to notice that certain people, opportunities, or situations are no longer meant to stay. It can be confusing because what once felt right now feels off. The friendships that used to be fulfilling may feel strained. The job that once brought excitement may feel empty. The habits that once seemed harmless may now feel like they're holding you back. In these moments, it's easy to question what's happening. You might wonder, why does it feel like people are pulling away? Why does it seem like I'm losing things instead of gaining them? But what if the things that are leaving your life aren't a loss at all? What if they are making room for something greater? When God is about to take you to a new level, He often starts by removing the things that can't go with you. It's not always easy. It doesn't always make sense in the moment. But just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's meant to stay. Just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't mean they are part of your next season. Think about a tree in the fall. When the seasons change, the leaves start to fall. The tree doesn't fight to hold on to them. It doesn't beg them to stay. It simply lets them go because it knows that new leaves will come in the right season. In the same way, when certain people or situations start to fade from your life, it's a sign that a new season is coming. If you try to hold on to what God is trying to remove, you may end up missing what He's trying to bring. Look at Abraham in the Bible. God called him to leave his home, his relatives, and everything familiar to go to a place that He would show him. Abraham didn't even know where he was going. He just knew that he had to leave. If he had refused to move, if he had clung to what was comfortable, he would have missed out on the great blessings that God had prepared for him. There are times when you have to be willing to walk away from what's known in order to step into what's next. It doesn't mean the past was bad. It simply means it served its purpose. Not everything is meant to last forever. Some things are only meant for a season. And when that season ends, it's time to move forward. One of the hardest things to accept is when relationships start to shift. Maybe you had a close friendship that suddenly doesn't feel the same. Maybe people you once relied on aren't showing up for you like they used to. It's painful to experience, but it's important to understand that not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Some people were assigned to your past, but not to your future. Jesus experienced this as well. When He was preparing to fulfill His greatest purpose, even some of His closest disciples struggled to understand. Judas betrayed him. Peter denied him. Not everyone who started the journey with him was meant to go all the way. But even in the midst of those changes, he didn't let it stop him. He kept moving forward, knowing that what God had planned was greater than the temporary pain of loss. Maybe you're experiencing a similar shift. Maybe certain friendships or connections are fading and you don't understand why. Instead of fighting to hold on, trust that if God is removing something, it's because He's making room for something better. The same goes for opportunities. Sometimes doors that were once open will suddenly close. Maybe you had a job opportunity that seemed perfect, but it didn't work out. Maybe you were working on something that felt promising, but it suddenly fell apart. It can be discouraging, but what if that closed door was actually protection? What if that opportunity wasn't God's best for you? Too often we try to force things to work that aren't meant to. We get frustrated when things don't go according to our plans, but sometimes what feels like rejection is actually redirection. God is not just concerned with giving you something good, He wants to give you something great. Think about a child who is holding on to a small toy while their parent is trying to give them something much bigger. The child doesn't want to let go because they don't understand what's coming. They're afraid of losing what they have, not realizing that what's ahead is far greater. In the same way, you might be holding on to something small when God is trying to give you something bigger. You might be clinging to a job, a relationship, or a situation that feels safe, when in reality, God has something far greater in store. That's why faith is so important. Faith is trusting that even when things don't make sense, God is still in control. Faith is believing that even when things are being removed, it's because something better is on the way. Look at Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. Everything seemed to be falling apart, but each setback was actually a setup. God was positioning him for something greater, and when the time was right, he was promoted to second in command over all of Egypt. If Joseph had gotten stuck in bitterness over what he lost, he would have never stepped into the blessing that was ahead. In the same way, if you focus on what's leaving instead of what's coming, you might miss what God is trying to do. So what should you do when you notice things shifting? When people start to fade? When opportunities close? Instead of resisting, surrender. Instead of holding on, trust. Instead of looking back, look forward. Because when God is preparing you for something greater, He will remove anything that can't go with you. It may not be easy, but in time, you'll realize that everything that left made space for something far better. New doors will open. New relationships will form. New opportunities will arise. And you'll look back and realize that what you thought was a loss was actually a blessing in disguise. So don't be discouraged when things start to shift. It's not a sign of failure. It's a sign of preparation. God is setting you up for something greater, and when the time comes, you'll step into blessings beyond anything you could have imagined. When you find yourself in a season where things seem to be shifting, where delays, obstacles, and even losses seem to be increasing, don't let discouragement take root. These are not signs of failure. They are indicators that something big is on the horizon. God never allows change without a purpose. He never removes without replacing. He never closes a door without opening another, far greater one. The challenges you face, the waiting seasons you endure, the people and opportunities that leave, these are all part of a divine process. They are shaping you, preparing you, and positioning you for something beyond what you can see right now. It may not feel like it, but every moment of struggle is strengthening you. Every season of delay is developing you. Every difficult goodbye is making room for a greater hello. Just like a seed must be buried before it can grow, just like a tree must lose its leaves before it can bloom again, you are in a process that leads to something far greater. The struggles are temporary, but the blessings coming your way are permanent. So don't give up. Don't let fear or frustration convince you to settle where you are. Keep trusting. Keep believing and keep moving forward, because when God is about to give you something big, everything will start aligning in ways you never expected. And when that moment comes, you'll look back and realize that every trial, every delay, and every loss was necessary to lead you into the incredible future He had planned for you all along.